think any of them. I mean, some of us were arrested when the cops, like some of our live streamers were arrested and detained. But in terms of those who were arrested for any of the other things or for the violent acts, no. I mean, not that I can think of off the top of my head, not one of them.
And the point being that the people that have been involved in Occupy and have been living through the G8s and the demonstrations and that sort of thing, they weren't involved in any actions that got them arrested and charged with brutality, terrorism, all these wild things that are in the papers today.
Yeah, no, not at all.
How are you doing?
Yeah.
And the people that were arrested were from out of town and only came in contact with known instigators.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, they did this in Cleveland too, right? I mean, like, you know, when I was to Occupy the Midwest, I actually met those kids who were arrested in Cleveland. I mean, they're freaking 18, 19-year-old impressionable kids who don't quite know yet, right? And you know, but this is what entrapment is, right? You find the desperate and the impressionable kids who want to, you know, instigate or want to like take it a step further, and you know, you show them a step further that's the wrong way instead of showing the more radical real step further, which is broad-based like movement building, right? And you lead them down a path in order to arrest them, and it's entrapment. Plain and simple, right? Or you make things up and plant things, you know. Yeah.
And what I'm getting at is just the whitewashing of Occupy and the smearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Due to these handful of arrests of people that haven't been part of Occupy here in Chicago.
No, that's right. And I think more important though is like the way in which McCarthy and who's, you know, our superintendent here, and Rahm use NATO as a chance to try to whitewash the police, right? So the police, who have a long history of racist torture and violence in this city, all of a sudden get a brand new brand post-NATO, despite the fact that, as you see in the New York Times today, you know, we have a 38% rise in deaths here, shooting deaths here in Chicago. Like, and the police aren't doing their job, and it's not because they're not understaffed, it's not because they're not under-equipped, because God knows they came out of NATO with plenty new toys, right, and plenty new people, right? And so it's just like they get whitewashed, despite, and that's the thing that pisses me off the most, is that, you know, our racist, violent, and brutal police here in Chicago come out sparkling, while people are dying left and right in this city.
And just to take it a little step further, because when people now think of NATO, they think about these outbreaks, skirmishes, and the police beating heads and that sort of thing. Nobody even talks about the large peace demonstration that happened.
Yeah, on the 20th, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, on the 20th.
Yeah, it was the largest demonstration against NATO ever. Period. Against NATO by itself, it was the largest demonstration ever. It took months and months and months of planning. That began back last August by tireless experienced activists here in Chicago that brought together a broad coalition of community activists and just community organizations in order to stand up against the imperial war machine. It was one of the most beautiful marches I've ever been a part of. Yeah.
And even more than that, nobody even talks about what was actually talked about at the NATO Summit.
Oh yeah. You mean at the actual NATO Summit?
Yeah, at the actual NATO Summit.
Of course not. This is diversion, man. It's diversion pure and simple, right? I mean, like, you know, the fact that I think there was a really good article, I think in Salon, by somebody who was a reporter who was there during the summits, and which he was talking about the I can't remember which company, but like the discussions between this corporation and states of heads in order to do like Star Wars stuff. Like, nobody talks about what was decided, what deals are made, etc. No, they don't. No, it's just us, right? Just the violent protesters that take the headlines, who want to throw shit on the cops. Which has never happened. And also, there's never been a Molotov throw, right? In like the history of like marches in the US. Not once has there ever been a Molotov throw. I mean, you know, anyway.
So, I mean, we don't have to, you know, answer back to these weird things, but you know, the idea that the protesters were throwing feces and urine, where did that ever even begin? We have no idea.
I mean, I imagine the cops.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty active in the protest community, and just doesn't sound like a fun idea to me. I mean, I can think of much better things to do than throw shit at people. But that's just me.
But the only time I saw, you know, feces and urine was when the horses came through.
Yeah, me too.
And they didn't pick it up.
Of course not.
You know, and if that wasn't provocation enough, and nobody picked up the road apples and tossed it back at the police.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. No, not one. Not that I know of.
I mean, that would have been on cameras everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, speaking of things that were left out, I mean, I think that these kind of phantoms of violence and shit-throwing protesters, which aren't real, you know, took front stage. And not only did we miss what was actually talked about during the NATO summits themselves, what deals are made and whatnot, but also the kind of vets who threw back their medals was kind of eclipsed too, which to me is the most powerful moment of the whole demonstrations, right? When you have these vets throwing back their medals and saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Yeah. So.
Thanks for that. That was